Hello and welcome back. It's been a minute. My name is Rob, aka Lantern Noir, and I am joined by the amazing,
Graybeard Tavern.
and we're bellying up for. It's been a minute, but we're finally getting back together and enjoying some beverages for happy hour to talk about the Dungeons and the Dragons, and in this case, the holidays. And just kind of some fun memories that we've had over the years. A little bit of the gift giving, the gift receiving, and just sort of shoot the breeze about maybe even a little bit of gaming around the holidays and some of the fun experiences therein. It's been a couple of weeks. Have things been? You were saying before we started that you're still waiting on celebrating the official Christmases.
Yeah. Me and the oldest elf have been ill, so we decided instead that we were going to hold off on Christmas till next weekend with the in-laws and all that. So still haven't had my holiday. We just kind of all laid there. Some of us were very ill, and so we just chilled out. We put up one string of lights because normally we put up our tree on Christmas Eve and stuff, and
Very last minute
so
of you.
it's kind of a tradition. So that's one of those things. We try to put it up on New Year or Christmas Eve and take it down on like New Year's Day or New Year's weekend, that first weekend. Otherwise, we've had the times where the tree will stay up until like the end of January if we don't if we don't,
So it's not normal
yeah,
to still have your tree up for St. Patrick's Day.
they exist. They see that's the way it would work out. Yeah. Well, in particular, too, in years past, I've always put up a tree here in the tavern too, with all my Star Wars ornaments. So it's usually got Darth Vader's head. I've got a Darth Vader mask that is my tree topper for the tavern tree, and then all my Star Wars things. But my Christmas lights died. I'm like, oh, I'm way out of spirit. Way out of spirit. There, I'm going to be visited by ghosts this evening. That's what's going to happen. So,
As one does. Well, I gooned the Kitty K this
mm,
year because shortly before the holidays, I had the bright idea that I would put LED lights around the chair,
mm.
which is now adorned with one of the. I got a blanket for the Christmas this
I
year.
was going to ask.
Mrs. Noir got me a kitty blanket, and it's that
Okay.
nice, super soft fleece. So I
Yeah,
have it down
yeah.
here on my chair in case it gets cold down in the studio.
Mm,
But before that, I had planned to put lights around the chair.
mm.
And so I ordered some. And the thing is, they were neat. They were like this really long run of them, but they were like 4 inches between lights.
Uh,
And I was like,
mm.
unless I intend to like wrap the chair mummy style or keep going up and over the back a million times, it really didn't have the effect I wanted because I was
Yeah.
going for the channel point reward, change the lights thing. I
Right.
wanted something like that I could quickly, do. Is the easy thing to keep people engaged. So
Yeah.
I turned to Kitty K and said, "Hey, do you want these in your room?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you want that for Christmas? Because if you want it for
Mm.
Christmas, you can have them." And she said, "Okay." And we ran up and we put them up in her room. This was like 3 weeks ago. So she's opening presents, and the first one she goes to is that funny box that sounds weird because it's really light. And she
Really?
rips it open, and
Okay.
it's the box that the lights came in because that's how Dad rolls.
Exactly. Nice.
Well,
Good job.
you
Good
said
job.
you said you wanted those for Christmas, so and I wanted you to open something.
Right.
So there you go. She was
It,
not bemused.
did are your kids at the point where it's there's nothing to wrap, you know it's all I wanted this and I wanted that it's all Steam and Xbox and
Yep,
whatnot.
yep, yep. We
Mm,
we helped the teenager buy their new computer,
mm,
and part of that was a new monitor.
mm-hmm.
And so based on the numbers, that monitor came out of their Christmas money. And so they also unwrapped the empty box that their monitor came in. Although the sad epilogue to that story, I don't know, is that a coda if it's sad? They ordered the computer 3 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago, they had saved up enough money to order the computer. And they were ecstatic. And we ordered it a night that we were playing. We ordered it on a Wednesday because I was down here running the convergence while Mrs. Noir was trying to run the order through. We had all kinds of shenanigans with the credit card. So we finally get the stupid thing ordered. It was due to arrive sometime between today and New Year's. And I had even said, are you sure you want to wait 3.5 weeks to get your new computer that you have been working so hard to save up for? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. We got an email. They got an email last night. It has been delayed.
No.
The current estimated delivery date is February 22nd.
Oh.
Ouch. Because they weren't sure they were going to go up north with the grandparents. My parents have a cottage up in the pinky finger area, and they were like, "Oh, I don't know. My computer's due to come, and I'm really excited because I worked so hard to save. 4 months of helping Dad drive DoorDash.
Right.
Really was like, kind of want to check out my computer, and we were like, well, your computer will be here for forever, but understand." And then we were at my mother's family's Christmas, and it was like, oh, yep, just got an email. Computer's not going to be ready for another 2 months.
Oh.
I'm like,
what can you do?
Yep. But this is the one they want because they gave them the option to cancel the order. And I said, I can take you to the shop I get my stuff from, and they can probably have a new computer for you within a week. And they're like, nope.
Yep.
This is the one I've picked out.
All right. Well,
okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Very, very dedicated to that. But no, we are very much in the, it's hard. Our house is hard to shop for these days. So I assume, are yours moving there? I feel like the oldest probably is.
Yeah, both have been that way now for like a couple years. Yeah. Really since the youngest was like 12, they'd want stuff that couldn't really be wrapped, and so the grandparents don't understand that at all. That's like a thing where that's not Christmas. So
they have to open a box and it has to have stuff in it, and
exactly, there has to be wrapping paper and scrunchies, and it's really funny too because one of the grandparents does stockings every year, and the stocking stuff has just become like chapstick and hand sanitizer and stuff, useful stuff. I'm not gonna belittle it or whatever, but it is pretty funny. So that's pretty much it.
I can respect that. I'm thinking back too of like the weirdness of people buying me game books when they knew I played Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And they were always like I think one year I got the Fiend Folio and I never opened it after I got it because I wasn't using it at the time, but it was like clearly they went into a store and said, my nephew plays this Dungeons and Dragons game. I want to buy him a book.
Yeah.
And the guy probably said, well, he probably doesn't have this one.
Right. This is the new thing.
Yeah, this is one that's safe because he probably has this and this, and because the question comes, well, what do they have?
I remember. So we used to be lucky, and we had at one time we had three major hobby stores, like in the town I'm near or lived in at the time.
Good deal.
Yeah, it was nice. It was so nice that when we were running the Gamers Guild, we kind of pit them against each other, and got discounts at all three, and then would run ads in our, because back then we had a zine. We had a little fanzine we'd put out every quarter or whatever. Anyway, but I remember one time being in there and during the holidays and helping customers out. Just not because you kind of become one of those fixtures, because they it's my local shop there, brick and mortar store. It's funny, I walk in and it's, hey, Graybeard, blah blah blah. And so but yeah, it's really neat to kind of be able to help someone at the stores like that. Well, do they play Warhammer or Warhammer 40K? And
if they play Warhammer 40K, do you ever hear the word epic thrown in? Because that's a different kind of game.
Yep. So there's Space Marines, but there's Space Marine as a game itself. Yeah, no, it's funny. It was good. I remember that was a pretty fun time. But yeah, running holiday games. So we want to go there?
Absolutely.
All right. It was very funny because early in my streaming career over on Indoor Adventures channel, it was really funny because we were all talking about the holidays and we're like, do we just want to run on Christmas? Because everybody's like, I'm not doing nothing. So yeah, so for a couple years there, we did on the holiday. I would just throw something together like last minute, like, are we gonna play or not? Yep. Okay, great. I'll DM and go.
And that always is the big question. Who's okay? If we're gonna play, great, but who's gonna DM it? So who's got to pull something out of their backside and make a game out of it?
And there's always three major bad guys. You're either gonna go against Drag Frost, Krampus, or some twisted Santa Claus. Santa Claus with claws. Those are generally the bad guys that I usually have.
Interesting,
for a Christmas story.
I would have been like, okay, so the storyline involves this guy who runs a lending house. And you have to get into his head and defeat the spirits that are making him a bad guy.
Nice. See,
there's
room. Awesome. There is. But those have been my three go-tos over the years. Particularly when we used to do seasonal stuff for the kids, and I ran a kids game. So yeah, over the years, every holiday season, I had to have a different bad guy, and for them, it was all about the terrain and the miniatures and stuff. So, one year, when they were battling Jack Frost, I made snowmen, right? Little tiny snowmen out of little cotton balls, for crafts. And I put them together. Well, one of them, the wizard, I took a yellow highlighter, and he was the yellow snowman.
Ooh, creepy.
Well, that was the joke for the dads at the table, that there was a yellow snowman, and the yellow snowman had magic powers. And so anyway, See, I do enjoy a holiday game. It's always a good time. I like making a creepy Krampus, the big claws, and putting him in the red suit, but yet have him be so like when we did Monster Noir with him, he was so massive and so scary that even the characters being vampires and fae and stuff were like, Oh God, that is Father Christmas, the scariest thing in the universe. Flee, run for your
I
lives.
signed up to fight other vampires, maybe a werewolf, but I feel like this wasn't in the contract. Do we
Exactly.
get hazard pay? Because I think that's going to factor into my decisions from here on out.
Right, exactly. Oh, shoo.
So and those make for good games. And when I've had family that have shown interest, none of my family have been hardcore D&Ders.
Right.
So around the holidays, if I'm breaking out games, the closest I can get to a D&D game is like a D&D board game, which is always tricky because you find yourself like people will like even yesterday with my mother's family, there were questions about what I've been doing, and I've talked about like the game streams and stuff, and then it's like I'm explaining Dungeons and Dragons, I'm explaining role playing games and playing role playing games on Zoom, and
Yeah.
I'm explaining Twitch.
Right.
And at a certain point, I was like, I think I need a marker board just to kind of organize all the info I'm dumping on you. And then my cousin's husband kind of started on a thing about NFTs and cryptocurrency. And I kind of went, oh, you're one of those. Okay. Because I haven't really got, but the board games have been a nice, like, those I know if someone really wants to, they're a nice way of saying, let's get the experience without all the work.
Right. And it's more codified and a kind of linear experience then, because there's a lot more rails there. Me and the oldest elf were just talking about, she was saying, I think she was playing something Genshin Impact or something, and she was like, but I can't do this and I can't do that. And I said, well, that's the difference between a video game and a role play game. In a role play game, you say, I'm going to do X, there is no invisible wall there. It's one of my things that I always hate. I'm a special forces guy, the top specimens of the human race, and I can't jump over a dumpster because it's there in the alley to make me not be able to go into the alley. Like,
yep. I've often like held out there that that's one of my ways to recruit players, especially from the stream community, to the gaming table, is that whole like the more frustrated someone gets on their playing their game, like, I really want to do this, I really want to do this. Well, there's a whole genre of game designed around yes and or yes but. And that's definitely a thing. Loot boxes, welcome to our chat as we're hanging out here talking about holidays and gaming. And here's the bitch. Exactly, Black Dragon Tavern, also chilling out with us today. I have some hope, though, because my brother-in-law and his wife have just started getting into heavy gaming. Or I guess I should say modern board gaming. Because and their problem is he grew up playing Axis and Allies. And by grow up playing, I mean like was so into it he would play against himself on like a Saturday afternoon. He would play all the countries independently and he like just work his way down and make optimum moves for each. So it was basically a game of dice, but still. And he's been trying to play games with her, and they'll play things like Memoir 44, and he'll crush her, and then they'll play Axis and Allies, and he'll crush her. So now they're looking at cooperative games.
Aha! Yes.
And we actually had a really wonderful run of Flashpoint, Operation Rescue.
Right. Yeah.
On Christmas, because it was
That's
like
cool.
we gifted it to them, and then we said, we can teach it to you, and we played the basic rules. And it was really fun. It had that high tension that you like in that gaming experience without all the work of like, and we didn't even use like the character sheets because it comes with character cards. You can be special firefighters.
Right.
It was just a lot of fun. And it was kind of neat to see that cooperative gaming element from role-playing games has a place in the modern board gaming industry
Yeah.
that still keeps going.
Yeah, and it's really funny because here in the tavern there are none of the others enjoys conflict, and so even we played poetry for Neanderthals, which has a big blow up
Yep.
club. It has a club is the no stick, and it says no and has a sad face on it, and and you thump, when somebody uses a word with more than one syllable, you thump them. If the club passes around the table and you thump them. But even that was, there was times where I'm like, it's a game, relax, because they get tense and stuff. And then at my in-laws, there's a couple of people who, oh no, this is a game and there will be a winner, and blah blah blah, and hence my whole crew doesn't want to play because they want to play together as a team, so I don't know, that's pretty funny.
Also, roleplay adjacent, I'll bring up, because I think we might take it out on New Year's Eve. We have a couple of board gaming friends coming over, and I feel okay. First, I'm not gonna lie, it feels weird to talk about get-togethers through the holiday season that we are living in.
Yes.
But we are doing, they're all really small. Like, we got together with my parents, we got together with my in-laws, we got together with my mom's family, and they're all little gatherings where everyone's been behaving and everyone's testing. And it's kind of the same thing with New Year's Eve. We've got a couple of like gaming families we know that are all behaving really well. But one of the ones that I'm looking at taking out is the Sherlock Holmes mysteries. The consulting detectives, which I might even think about seeing if I can find a copy of the Cthulhu version.
Right.
Because we're actually, because we streamed a bunch of them, we're actually running low on mysteries to do.
Gotcha.
Because we've finished so many of them. I think with the ones we have right now, I think we have one more real mystery, and then we have the Jack the Ripper story, which is 5 games in sequence.
Right.
And allegedly, I think it ends with you catching Jack the Ripper, but not getting credit. Because as we know, Jack, the mysterious man that they call Jack the Ripper, just suddenly stopped.
Yeah.
And all the evidence that we've had about serial killers is they never just stop.
Yeah. So I've always said, though, is most likely he sailed away or died of bronchitis or tuberculosis or any kind of ailment where it was just like done, and so anything that mysteriously ended in the 1800s and before.
Well, there was a pitch I saw on Tumblr one time, or it was one of those, I saw the picture on Facebook and it was a grab of a Tumblr post, which was, I want to see a novel or a role-playing game about a group of London prostitutes who take it upon themselves to hunt down Jack the Ripper.
Well, okay, I would watch and or play that in a heartbeat. In second grade, I think it was second or third grade.
Interesting transition. How are we?
Yeah, sorry, no, it's Jack the Ripper, not prostitutes. Sorry, I did jump tracks pretty hard there. I was supposed to play Jack the Ripper in this play that my buddy, his older sister, wrote that had Jack the Ripper, Frankenstein, the werewolf, and one other monster in it. Anyway, what ended up happening is that people freaked out and got stage fright, and so at the last minute I ended up playing 3 of the characters. I ended up playing Jack the Ripper, the policeman who was chasing Jack the Ripper, and like one other character that had like 2 lines in it. So it was really hilarious and silly that we had to play it. But I did get to do a great stunt where I pushed Dr. Frankenstein into a cabinet, and a big tub that said acid tipped over on top of him, and confetti fell on him and burnt him to pieces. So Frankenstein then slid me down a table through a brick wall, a cardboard brick wall. And so I got to slide on the table and go through the brick wall and land on gym mats, the tumbling mats.
Oh yeah.
Piled on the other side of the wall. So
that was
it was
slick.
fun.
Tyrus
It was
James,
fun.
thank you for following our channel over here at Lantern Noir. Thank you, Raiders, for coming in. For the podcast listeners as well as the Raiders, here at twitch.tv/Lantern Noir, you find all kinds of games, Dungeons and Dragons games streamed live. The Raiders!
Word.
You see Happy Hour every other Tuesday, where we talk D&D. Sometimes, usually. This week's a bit of an exception because of the holidays. And then random gaming. We play all kinds of games and whatnot. Right now I'm playing through Medieval Dynasty, and I am playing through, XCOM is my other go-to. Like, just game, let's play some more XCOM. Let's try a different difficulty. Let's get some more graphics mods and have schoolgirls go up against the aliens. So thank you for coming on in. We appreciate you bringing your people here, and feel free to join the conversation. We are talking about holiday gaming in a very generic sense. Some dungeons, some dragons, and some neither dungeon nor dragon, as it may be.
It's happy hour.
We'll
talk about anything.
Exactly. We also had the Black Dragon Tavern a few moments ago also pitched in there the reminder that there may have been a TV show about hunting Jack the Ripper, which seems vaguely familiar. Copper.
I think it was called Copper or something. It was a period piece, and it was really pretty good.
Yeah,
at least one.
I always had the theory that Jack the Ripper ended up in the same temporal anomaly where they gathered the greatest minds from collective history that had vanished. That's how they vanished, is they really weren't good at covering their tracks yet. As kind of like the rogue.
Got it.
Like we have him. We don't totally trust him, but he's really good at what he does. And then there's Amelia Earhart there, naturally. There's also why am I blanking on the name? I blanked on the name. Glenn Miller is also there. I'm not entirely sure why they picked up Glenn Miller, but I always like the idea that he's somewhere other than lost over the English Channel. I always thought that was like whoever was writing that clearly just was having a crappy day. Because like how do you end the story of this guy on and he disappeared over the English Channel?
And done.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah, that always bothered me with that.
For a second there, it sounded like we were starting a game of TORG. Do you remember TORG?
I
TORG.
don't. Go on.
Oh, TORG. TORG is a role play game where all the timelines kind of converge, and it's got fantasy elements and everything else. So, for instance, we had the game of TORG, the one game that I remember. In it, we had a World War II seaplane pilot, a French dragoon from the 1700s. Trying to think of who else was there, but yeah, when you would fly over different places, and places became different time periods. So like we flew our seaplane across to England, and it was all castles and dragons and fantasy, Arthurian stuff going on. So yeah, it was an older game, like 80s, 90s kind of RPG. Anyway,
West End Games published it in 1990.
Ta-da!
During, I don't know, do we call it the silver age of RPGs? The 90s?
All right.
Because there were so many games in that
Rifts.
block. Oh, Rifts. Oh, yes.
Yep.
Rifts. Oh, well, Rifts was based on the Palladium system.
Right.
Which...
Yeah, and it was completely unforgiving. If your DM was like, "Meh, go for it," I'd be like, I remember a guy starting a game, and I'm like, "Can I be an Atlantean?" So they're like, "Sure." Like, He said, sure. I'm 9 feet tall and I have superpowers. Wait, I'm just a human. And why does he get to be an Atlantean? Because he asked.
Yeah, there were
I, I
so
can
many
do
character classes.
I can do mega damage. Anyway.
Yep. Yep, yep,
Oh,
yep, yep, yep,
phew.
yep, yep. Those were the days. Well, that was like Rifts, I think, was Palladium's way of saying we need to put out something because the Shadowrun and
Mm,
Cyberpunk is big. How do we cash in on Cyberpunk,
right.
picking up steam, and catch other things? And it almost sounds like Arcanum by Bard Games back
Ooh,
in '82, the
ooh.
Lanta series. I think we've
Yeah.
talked about that before.
Yeah. The Arcanum came out right in that Ars Magica
Mm-hmm.
and I tried to think of some of the really much more crunchy uh, spell systems and magic systems. Yeah, I probably have Arcanum here somewhere. It's like the cover's black. It's got like red lettering and stuff on it. Yeah, I remember it. Dr. Gear was all about it back in the day.
Basis for homebrew, loving it.
Ah,
Yeah.
nice,
Well,
nice.
I was feeling all clever with the Convergence,
Mm.
which we are due to resume tomorrow night. We
Oh,
if everything goes well, we lost last week because I was feeling ill going into the holidays. I wanted to rest up and be as well as I could be. My COVID
yeah.
test was a negative,
Woohoo.
and I did 2 levels of it. I did the nose swab and the to the doctor,
Mm.
and both of them basically said no. And my doctor's one was you have. I'm sorry to say, the common cold.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping. Like, me and the oldest elf have is just some kind of cold, but it ticked enough boxes that we were like, we gotta go do the thing, be responsible.
Be good
Um,
about this. Yeah.
mhm.
But I was feeling all clever with the convergence being like that convergence of realities. And just reading the synopsis of TORG, I'm like, somewhere TORG got filed in the back of my subconscious. And that must be part of where the convergence came from.
Yeah,
That cross genre. And I mean, I always have loved those as fun games to just let people kind of be crazy with.
hmm
Also, not bad if you have a group that insists on playing a role playing game that are not normally role players.
hmm
Having games like that you can quickly that come with preset character sheets that you can
right,
just pass out at the table or here, open the book, copy down these numbers,
right,
and go. And then the system is really forgiving mechanically to let you then get in and kind of quick tell a story
yeah,
and capture that. I will also pause now to make yet another plug, if I have not made enough of them on this stream,
hmm
for Kids on Bikes
yes,
or the
yes,
Kids on series.
right, yep,
I've heard great things about Kids on Brooms, which,
yep,
as near as I can tell, is an identical game,
mm,
except all the flavor text is about being a kid at Hogwarts.
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
I have not played Kids on Brooms, but I have friends who have played it or run it and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of if you like that universe, you want to be at a magic school and be kids having big adventures. The only thing that's weird there in in that kind of crossover is how do the adults not know that the stuff is happening? Because like in Kids on Bikes, the thing is it's supposed to be like those 80s movies where the kids are like, but ma, there's a monster. Oh, sweetie, smooch on the head, here's a peanut butter sandwich. Wah 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 wah, off the and the
Yep.
adults shove you out the door to the werewolves. um
Or they're just absent. I mean, even
mm,
Stranger Things played
mhm.
very heavy, especially in season 2,
Yeah,
into the absentee parent and kind of, really giving us an insight into that, the tension
yeah,
therein.
right,
And that's, I think, a caveat in the game
yeah,
is, well, there's just no adults around.
yeah.
They're working.
And that I mean that And as one of the original Latchkey kids, man, let me tell you, some of the stuff we did, I can't imagine. As a you know a Soviet Hind helicopter parent of for my children, hovering over them with gunships and rocket pods. I cannot imagine. I see why we reacted and became the parents that we are, because we had nothing. I mean, there were 10-pound cans of gunpowder under the bench in the garage, and we used it. We would we would fill things with rocket fuse and blow things up because there were no parents around.
Who's gonna say no?
Yep.
And I think that kind of gets into that. That's why we love. Yeah, well, he's the one that went crazy as a kid. I had a stay-at-home mom, so I got into next to nothing. Because it really, if you think about it, the '80s, not to spend too long, totally off topic. The '80s really were you either had latchkey, or you had the stay-at-home mom, or dad. Almost always mom.
Yeah.
And the two provided very different experiences growing up.
Well, and it was always us latchkey kids trying to drag you kids with the stay-at-home mom, drag you out of the house to get you in trouble.
Yep. Yep. Oh, I don't know if you can go over to his. Aren't both his parents at work? Are you supposed to be going over there?
Yep.
I don't know how. Let me call her and ask.
Aren't his parents divorced?
Mine was never that bad. My family was not one of those that was something they understood did happen, which they kind of got a crash course in, because we had some family members early on make some choices that they regretted, which led to some situations. And so they kind of had to warm up quick to those things. But I would even say, though, something like, I think one time in college, we played a holiday game of Toon, the Toon of the Tooniversal role-playing game. Because again, it was in that genre of RPGs where you were just, you were just being bonkers, and you were rolling dice and you were failing more often than not, and then you were laughing about the fact that you had to be quiet for 3 consecutive minutes because your character fell down. And those kinds of games that they really make nice. They're good for holiday themed stuff with light gamers, or even with hardcore gamers that want to be light for the day.
Right.
Because you're not worried about all the mechanics and stuff. You're just like goofing around, having a beer, telling stories.
There used to be a game when that came out when I was in college, and we lived in a house, and there was like 9 of us living in the house. It's one of those college houses, and we used to play a game called Claydonians. Okay. And Claydonians is one of those maybe 1-2 pages of rules game where you get your can of Play-Doh and you make your character, and whatever you make, you pull stuff off the sheet, and they get to do different stuff based on what you've created. So if you one of the ones I remember, someone made, it was like a disc that had like spikes. It was like a saw blade with a spike on the top, and so it got to spin in directions and things, and when certain damage, you would just tear pieces off your Claydonian and like huck it. Or like one of them was you could throw something, so you would take the Claydonian and you would raise it so many inches off the table and drop it, and whatever damage occurs in the fall, that's what damage it takes, so anyway, the crazy old game. I'll bet dimes to dollars you can find rules for it on a PDF somewhere on the old internet. So
I'm sure they're out there somewhere, and those are some of the best. Those kinds of like hands-on-y things that make it easy for people that aren't usually gamers to get into. Yep. Although on the flip side of that, one thing that I do not enjoy, and it creates that awkward, you want to be grateful, but you also want to go, clearly you're not a gamer. Are the gifts of board games or card games that are Christmas themed?
Oh yeah.
Like, I know the hearts are in the right places, but I have about a half a dozen games in the house that are Christmas themed versions of things, and it's like they get even less play than the non-themed stuff because you only can take them out for like a month and a half of the year.
Right.
You know, I like having Christmas Flux,
Right.
but it's like I think I've gotten it twice, and I've played it once.
Right.
Um,
Because yeah, you go into, you open your game closet or cabinets, and it's like the Monolith from 2001 or 2010. Dun da 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 da, dun da, and there's just all these games, and you're like, of course I'm gonna get Christmas Yahtzee out,
special visitation rights, yeah, something like that.
yeah.
Which thankfully I think the modern board gaming's not as bad about it. There's a couple of like interesting Christmas themed board games out there. And I can only imagine what like the DM's Guild or Drive Through RPG is like at the holidays, as people are looking for holiday one shots to run.
Oh, yeah.
Which I kick myself for not having put one up.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what I was saying. Is it's for me, I have done at least a half dozen or more Christmas and or New Year's holiday games over the years. In just even my streaming career in the last like 6-8 years here, I've done probably 4 or 5 where it's been like I said, what are you guys doing for New Year's? Nothing. What are you doing? Nothing. Want to stream? Yeah. What are we playing? Heck if I know. Let's do this, So
something easy to teach.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't already know it, we're going to have to learn it quick.
Yeah. Monster of the Week is a really good one for like one shots for the holidays. Again, you turn your favorite Christmas creature, a snowman, a Yeti, whatever, into the antagonist and go. But
proceed it with a couple of trash mobs to warm the party up. Some good role play.
Yep.
Something maybe the classic, oh my gosh, the miller's daughter's been kidnapped kind of things. Although that reminds me, one of my favorite tropes that we played with when I was playing in a LARP. And we sent somebody into town to get adventurers for an adventure, as one does. And he goes in and he's screaming about his daughter has been kidnapped by this monster. You gotta go kill the monster. You gotta go get the guy. And it kind of filters its way down to the lower levels because, I mean, come on, it's just to go kill the monster quest. I don't want to do that. I'm here for big things. Here, you newbies, you go kill the monster. And they get out there and it's the girl and her boyfriend.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. They're the monsters?
No, they're not. They're just dad is just really mad that she's run off. And he's convinced these adventurers to come drag her back, which at that point we flipped the script a second time. And the boyfriend really was a monster. He'd just been successfully hiding it the whole time.
Gotcha.
Because you got to kill something. I think one time we ran it where the dad was the monster.
Okay.
And his transformation got triggered by something the boyfriend said. Like we did so much with my daughter's been kidnapped, and it wasn't a straight up, and there's the monster. Let's get it.
Right. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's more akin to a Hunchback of Notre Dame situation where she's actually protecting him because he's innocent and he just looks like a troll. Yeah, cool. I can get behind that.
Well, little tips: if you're going to run a one shot, subvert expectations slightly.
Right.
It's just like that common story, except
yeah,
your players will thank you.
I always do love running the daughter has run away or been kidnapped, but she actually ran away to join the orc motorcycle gang or whatever it is, And that was the plot of one of my Shadowrun games, was that she ran off to join the orc motorcycle gang.
Speaking of which, holiday story that came up yesterday. As we continue to ricochet around our relatively non-topic topic of the week, apparently when I was little, finding babysitters was hard. Which, if you think about the late 70s, you had at best word of mouth in your neighborhood,
right?
Or like a Post-it note at the church bulletin board. Little Tiffany's looking to raise some extra money babysitting, or. Alan and Margot have a 4-year-old they're looking to have a babysitter for. And they'd found one girl in their neighborhood that they really had liked, and she'd sat for like 4 times, and there were never issues. And then they called her, and she didn't answer. And there's like 4 months of non-contact, which is also 4 months of them trying to find another babysitter because they wanted to go out and they couldn't because no babysitter available, and they didn't know another one. And so they did find somebody else, but they kept trying to call the first girl. And finally, like 6 months after the last time she sat, they got a phone call through to her. And she's like, "Oh, I'd love to babysit. He was so much fun. Yeah, I'm happy to do that." So Friday night rolls around, and it's, coming up on 5 o'clock. So they're getting ready to head out to dinner, and they're all dressed up and ready to go for their evening. And they hear this rumbling outside. And this motorcycle pulls in the driveway. And it's not like, I mean, it's the big old hands up here, no mufflers. Dude's got the black World War II helmet on, and she jumps off and gives him a hug and then runs up to the door. And my dad says, "Who was that?" And she's like, "Oh, okay. So when I was on drugs, these guys in this motorcycle gang really took after me." And they helped me clean up and get back on the road. And they're like all a bunch of brothers I never knew I needed in my life. And so he gives me a ride everywhere I need to go now. And my mother swears it was the shortest date she's ever been on. Because they basically got in the car, they drove out to the front of the subdivision, turned around, came back and said, I don't feel really well. I think we're going to, we got to the restaurant. It was a little more crowded than we thought. So thank you for coming.
Now, see, the absolute best part about this is that I grew up in that motorcycle gang. That's the best part about that whole story is, basically that was, I grew up with, bikers and ex-Vietnam vets, mountain men.
I'm sure he was, he got her off drugs. He couldn't be all bad.
Right. But I could see from your parents' point of view, no, we gotta do this is done. We'll just come back to the house. And,
we had lots of wonderful stories shared over the weekend. So that was, and they're from all over our family history, thanks to my mother's, rock solid recollection of things. So, well, similarly, there was one year, speaking of holiday things, a friend of mine in high school had been involved in a dog bite situation, which, interesting enough, he took the attitude of, I was stupid. I walked into a neighbor's yard at a lake where we were visiting, and I walked up to a strange dog, and it bit me.
Right.
Seems pretty cut and dry. But there was a settlement involved.
Oh.
And so he received money. Oh. And the family did this is going to college, this is going to us, because we arranged all, we had to do all the paperwork with the insurance company, and this is left over for you. And he spent it by going to Alcove Hobby and buying one of every book that was in our RPG library kind of thing. We were playing Shadowrun, we were playing Robotech, we were playing Rifts.
Right.
And so he just bought big pile of books. We showed up for the Christmas party, which was one Friday after school at another
Yeah.
guy's house. We all just kind of converged on that. And he shows up and he goes, thwap.
Yeah.
Everyone take one.
Right.
Merry Christmas.
Sweet. So sweet.
And it was kind of neat. I think I got a Shadowrun adventure book out of the deal.
Yeah.
But it was just that kind of like, I don't want to mess around with figuring out who needs which book and how to balance it all.
Yeah.
It was just, here, everything. I was just,
Right.
just everyone grab one, be cool to each other. If you already have it, don't take a second copy. Alcove Hobbies, yes, it was near Sterling Heights. It was on Woodward Avenue, just south of 12 Mile. So it's just past the Shrine of the Little Flower, and it would be on the, wait for it, east side of Woodward Avenue, but north of 12th. I think it was in that 12 to 11 mile block. It may have been between 12 and 13. Old Stomping Grounds, yeah, that was in high school, that was our go-to hobby shop that we all went to, and there were not a lot for us. To be really honest, if it wasn't an alcove, you couldn't get your hands on it.
When I used to go to a place called the Bookstore in Midland, and it was this was our Saturday. They talk about kids on bikes. Here is the Saturday. Todd, Larry, sometimes Dan, and I would get on our bikes, and we'd pedal to the bowling alley. And then we'd spend, $1 billion quarters on Time Pilot and Centipede and Dig Dug and, all the classics. And then we would pedal to the hospital, and we would go to the hospital and get cheap food because they had the hospital cafeteria was open to the public. So we would go to the hospital, get cheap food. We'd ride across the Tridge because they had a bridge that had 3 bridges. Ooh, it was the Tridge, and then go to the bookstore. And the bookstore had 3-4 levels, and the basement of the bookstore was all hobby stuff, and they used to do a trade. It was 3-for-1 or 2-for-1 modules. So
nice.
we would trade 2 modules in and get a used module out. And then the top floor of the bookstore was paperbacks. Same deal. 2 in, 1 out. And so there were just these upstairs. It was just huge, like comic. Like how at the comic store they just have the bins. Well, that's the way. There were shelves, and then there were bins of paperbacks all in there. And so you would go up, you would hand in 2, get a ticket, go out, pick 1, come back, ticket, take the book. It's just awesome. Just
Good
awesome.
Deal. I did not do a lot of game conventions growing up, so the reference there in chat to the OCCC or MCCC. I was not that active. I think I went to one of them at the Southfield Civic Center. I want to say when I was in like pre-junior high, and then it really wasn't until after college that I started looking at conventions and stuff.
Yeah, it really wasn't until we were running the Western Michigan Gamers Guild until we started doing conventions. And then it was usually Spartacon, which is a war games convention, and then and then we would go to Gen Con every year because it was just across the lake generally.
In Lansing?
I used to go to Spartacon in Lansing, like every year for maybe. It had to be 5 or 10 years straight that I went to it. So maybe we did sit at a table together.
Maybe.
It'd be awesome.
Lansing is where I met Mrs. Noir at a live action game of Vampire the Masquerade.
Nice.
Which also stuck out because when I went to pick up my friend who I was driving there, she was married. And my father had because I was living with my parents at the time, are you sure you're comfortable picking up a married woman to take her out for an evening? Yeah, Dad, we're going to a role-playing game. Well, doesn't she have a husband who could take her? Yes, but he doesn't play this kind of role-playing game.
Right.
So I'm taking her, so she doesn't have to drive, and we're both kind of going kind of from the same place, ish. Yeah, that was a rough one. Although, again, perhaps my father was aware of something because they did end up splitting up.
Yeah. Yeah.
She
Well.
did live action gaming and he did MMOs.
Mm.
And then when she got into MMOs, he did but I'm a lot higher level than you, so you're gonna have to catch up with me.
So you have to spend all of your life and some catching up.
Yeah. And if I remember the story right, I think she left him for a guy that she leveled up with. So I mean, there's some lessons to be learned in all of this. And I'm not judging any of the three of them.
Yeah.
I mean, what you do is what you do. Downriver Lincoln Park, Michigan. That name rings a bell.
Yeah. See, I never did the cons really, except for the war game ones, because we were running Marmalade Dog, starting in like 91 or 92. And so that and Gen Con were my gaming conventions, my role play gaming type conventions. And then I used to do the local one at the college, and then I would go to Lansing for SpartaCon. So,
yeah,
always good to meet a fellow Michigander, as it is.
Which is part of the fun. I mean, in the holidays, I think it's always a weird one trying to game around the holidays. And it's neat to get the gifts. I always appreciated the gift cards, the little gift certificates and the envelopes, because I mean, even Alcove did gift certificates.
Right.
Back in the day, where you could see where the manager had hand signed.
Mm-hmm.
The good old days, as it were. It feels weird now, though, because it's like, I don't want physical copies of my books.
Yeah.
I want them all digital, and I got nothing game related this year, as far as like role playing games go. Partially because it's like a book comes out, and like, do we want to wait for Christmas?
Right.
Like, can we wait for like twice a year? We're gonna get new books, our birthdays and at Christmas. Like,
yeah. No, again, Fanfare has it listed under my name, D&D, all shiny covers. Anything that comes in that's a collector's cover, they just put one aside for me, and that's I have a shelf now that is packed, and then there's two on top. I'm gonna have to start a new shelf of books that I've never opened. Because I also get them on D&D Beyond, and that's where I play my D&D. So
and even if I was using Math Rocks, which the Convergence may shift to using, we may move away from our online dice roller to Math Rocks, and I will not expound upon why.
All right.
I just expect in the coming weeks there will be a little mutiny against the online dice roller. And a little call for us to use Math Rocks.
All right.
And I'm going to roll with it, because I will totally appreciate why the call will come if it does. I mean, you never know. Players are freaking unpredictable.
Yes. Tune into the Convergence to find out why.
In a couple of weeks. I mean, tonight we won't have this. This won't be a thing this week. We have enough stuff going on this week. But where was I going with this thought?
Oh no!
I was going somewhere, and then we got off on the Math Rock thing.
You liked getting the gifts. Holiday gaming is hard, I think, was the original statement.
Yeah.
And I'll expound for a second on that while you try to get that train on the it's usually holidays. There's twice a year where gaming groups get in peril. The holidays can be the death knell to a game, because a lot of times you'll stop for the holiday break because nobody can get together, because they got to go to their girlfriend's parents for Christmas, and your parents, but then your parents are divorced, so you have two sets of parents, so then there's like 3 or 4 weekends on the holidays where you can't get together to play. So really and truly, the holiday season can really kill a campaign. I mean, even me and the Grognard crew took the past two, last Saturday and next Saturday off, even though none of us were really going to be doing anything other than, it's the holiday, type thing. So, yeah, it's rough. It can really kill a gaming group.
It's amazing how critical momentum is to a gaming group, because the longer you go between sessions, the less people remember and the less excited they are usually.
Yep.
And that's just such a tough thing to overcome. And
Yes.
I'll agree with Polymorph that there definitely is something to be said for the digital code for the online website in the book, which I think once Wizards of the Coast divorces itself from D&D Beyond
Or absorbs it.
that will be a thing.
Yeah.
That will definitely be a thing. And they will discount the digital book slightly.
Right.
Because they won't give you a physical book. They don't want to do the shipping.
I would be completely cool with like $9.99 if you bought a physical copy and you've got your little code in the back. It's one of those things where you can then exchange your code and get your digital copy. Problem is how are they going to do that where some sneak isn't gonna open the book, click, take a photo of the code with this thing, and then turn in the code, or
scratch it off while nobody's looking, because they can do things like the scratch off codes and stuff.
Yeah.
But that said, a company like Steam can make digital gifts work.
Yes.
Where it doesn't work unless it's activated at the store.
Yep.
So they could totally do that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about the ebook thing. I like the idea of my family going, oh, you still need this book. I got a copy of Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
Yeah.
I think I got it for Father's Day from the teen.
Yeah.
And now they use it because I've never opened it.
Right.
Because as soon as I got the hard copy, I saw that as justification to go buy it on D&D Beyond. And then I never looked at it again.
Right.
Because anything I need, I get out of that. And it really has, in a lot of ways, made it harder for me to... hey, Vashon, Merry belated Christmas to you as well. And happy holidays to anyone else who celebrates something besides Christmas, as it were. It really has taken some of the oomph out of what used to be kind of a fun thing when I was really I think it was 4th edition era and 3rd edition era. I could say, here's a list of 20 books I need for D&D. Whereas nowadays, Wizards of the Coast has this nice perpetual rollout they do.
Yep.
But it also means that they're spread out enough that there's not that sense of oh, I have a bunch of books I need to get. It's it's paced almost too perfectly.
Well, and they're it's very purposeful.
Oh yeah.
In the early days, it was 2 books a year.
Yep.
And now we're steamrolling up to 4 books a year, and I'm okay, we're still avoiding the bloat. We still don't have the splat book bloat that we did have in the ancient times. So that's good. Or Pathfinder, oh my God, when that was always a thing, too much Pathfinder bloat. To start a game of Pathfinder, you just need this
good
library. This is the starting. This will help you make your character, and that whole shelf there. That's the rest of Pathfinder.
I think I spent an hour and a half making a character in the Pathfinder game because I was trying to figure out all of my options, and I know how easy in Pathfinder /3.5 it is to set your character up for failure.
Right.
That it is not a forgiving system on mistakes in character creation. And I got to the hour mark and I'm well, crap. Now I need to start opening Google because I can't deviate. I am clearly going down the road of making a finesse fighter.
Right.
But I'm too invested. I can't play this now for an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours and go, oh man, I screwed my character up. I got to start over. Because, like, an hour and a half of my time was just making the damn character.
Right. I want to be an inquisitor, but wait, how can I? No, maybe a magus. Ooh, what do I want to be? I was on board day one for Pathfinder Kingmaker, the video game, and it's the now it's got all the awards and bells and whistles and stuff. But I was there like day one and got it, and then I went, oh my god, I forgot about Pathfinder.
There's a reason I don't play that game.
Yes.
Not
to dog it. If you love it, play what you love.
About now, we should be talking emails. So I'm gonna go do a thing off Twitter.
All right.
That goes with our conversation. Somebody posted that they despise the house rule Player's Handbook +1. And for those not familiar, the rule goes like this: you can make any character you want as long as you limit yourself to items found in the Player's Handbook and one other source book.
Right.
So, like, you can't grab a Reborn background from Van Richten's guide and something from, like, a background from the Candlekeep Mysteries.
Right.
You can't merge those. You pick one second book after the Player's Handbook.
Yeah. Are we looking for how we feel about that?
Sure.
I would say I don't care. Because one of the things that I found early on, and I remember having to ask GMs is, can I make my own background? Because it's right there at the beginning of the background things. It says, here's how you make your own background. Meh. And so that was one of the first things I started doing, was making custom backgrounds, like the Undertaker. I made an Undertaker background and a detective background, and then they came up with one that came out in the Sword Coast book and anything. Anyway, but so for me, I don't care what books you're in, but I don't feel that I need to know anything about your character that's not story relevant. If you come up and you sneak in some kind of whammy superpower on me, I'm gonna go, whoa, that's cool. What book's that in? Awesome. Let's do this and roll with it. But yeah, I can see where you can be blindsided as a DM by stuff like oh well, I'm taking this subclass from Tasha's, and I'm gonna, like you said, I'm gonna grab the Reborn from Von Richten's as my ancestry or race, and make this like super combo. I don't know.
Yeah, I was the person who was tweeting about it, and we were discussing in chat right now as to whether or not this is standard to the Adventurers League, and I would not be shocked if it is.
That sounds very correct.
It sounds like an easy way to allow people to use all the source material without having to, like, say, yes, you can make any character you want except these combos. Going through and finding all the broken combos ahead of time. It's like, no, let's just avoid broken combos by not letting you over combo.
Yeah.
But the tweet about it was like, I won't play at tables with this rule because as a player, I feel too restricted.
Oh.
And I kind of took I took the DM's point of view, which is, yeah, but remember, the DM is trying to have an engaging event for all of these people. That's really hard to do when you've got the one person who grabs all when they power game and nobody else is power gaming.
Right.
And it's a tough one. I had never really heard it that way, but I kind of dig it. As like, that was my first exposure to the rule as such. I don't know if I would be strict about it.
Right.
But I would say I work on a Player's Handbook +1 principle.
Yeah.
Let me know if you plan to deviate from that.
Right. Well, and two, for instance, uh, at uh, at the high school that the elves go to, they have a D&D gaming club.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't have those rules. So, for instance, my elves have access to everything, um, uh, basically. And so the youngest elf showed up with a centaur barbarian something, this just cascade of very cool, I mean, as far as I would read a comic book about this, the youngest elf's character. But I can imagine being a poor DM kid from high school who only has the, player's handbook, monster manual, DMG, has those three books, and all of a sudden a centaur shows up at your table, who's like, a Wrath of the Ancients barbarian or some, crazy paladins shoved in their combo, I can imagine it would throw your whole game off. Oh, we were going to be doing the tree fortress climbing game, and now the centaur can't do any of that.
Now what?
Yeah.
Which does make things weird. Oh, it seems
Yeah.
like a good conversation point to have. We have been all over today's map, partially because we came in with a let's talk holidays and gaming, and we just had a chance to shoot the breeze. So for those of you that were listening to us on the podcast and you're not sure how the title got put here, we apologize a little bit. As long as Crimson in our chat, as long as the player isn't metagaming their characters or creating something fresh out of their own, tend to agree with the sentiment of being limited as a player that is. Yeah, like I'm down with that. I think there are ways to find it. About now is also a great time to mention that we are partially sponsored by SweetSteam.com. So if you hop over to SweetSteam.com and use the code SteamNoir at checkout, you can get 5% off your order of the amazing steampunk-themed chocolates and other sweet goodies. Did you forget to get something for the holidays? Did you have that awkward moment? And Gribby, has this ever happened to you? You didn't know you were exchanging presents with someone until they handed you something? Yeah. That coworker the day before everyone went home for vacation for the Christmas hands you the thing, and you're like, "Oh, I would have gotten you something, but the supply chain, it's still coming." So if that's you, sweetsteam.com, and plus the best part about chocolates, once you've eaten them, there's no shelf space required. It's one of those consumable experiential things that does not clutter a house. It's Marie Kondo compliant. So I'm just saying, Steam Noir at checkout, 5% off your order, and we do appreciate SweetSteam.com. They're good people. What have you got coming up? The new year is upon us. Remember, folks, we're going in quiet. Someone posted on Twitter that they're going in and they're crushing 2022, and I'm like, oh no, we're not. We're going to walk in quietly. We're gonna keep our hands clearly visible. Because the last time we said this is going to be our year, we're going to own it, we got 2021.
And 2020 before that. So yeah.
But what's coming up in the new year for the Graybeard?
So I am still doing most of my, or at least half of my games offline. So where you can see me currently is on Sunday, 10 a.m.-ish on my channel, Graybeard Tavern. I'm playing Wilder Myth, and I'm going to play all the storylines that they have before procedural stuff. And when we get to procedural stuff, we'll probably switch something else. We're on episode, 20 something. And those episodes you can find on my YouTube, Graybeard Tavern, and catch up, though episode 2 and 3 are missing. I don't know why, but that's Sunday, 10 a.m. And I, of course, I've got lots of, fun toys and things that we play with, and when we do shows. And that's that and the talk show are all my online stuff right now. So I give half my online time to this endeavor. Um,
Oh, so that means
that's it for me.
so in
TV.
2022 you're taking over the editing and posting, huh?
Oh, yeah, you don't want me to do that.
Well, I'm excited. We're hoping to continue Dragon Heist. That's our Sunday night game, 7 p.m. We've had some misfires with schedules. I'm hoping it's going to settle down and we don't have to wrap the campaign before we finish it. Because I really would like to get past chapter 3. I have never gotten past them establishing themselves in Waterdeep.
Oh,
That's usually where the game ends. And that particular game, a few weeks ago we wrapped up. They were in the Undermountain. They had found the rogue. They'd found Volo. They found that Gem Volo had hired a different party, to help him retrieve, and we had that's exactly the moment we stopped on.
right.
Wednesday night with the Convergence is still clipping along very well. We had an amazing session week before last, because I've been trying to figure out how to get Pon's character's backstory into the game. And once I'm done this week, assuming we play, because one of our players is feeling ill and she's not sure she can pull it off, but if we play, I can then wrap up that arc and I can then focus on somebody else's backstory for a while. Because Ponda's had a lot of backstory time, but the short form, the elevator pitch, we took advantage of a short rest to do a flashback to her days in the Resistance before the Convergence, where she was nursed back to health after a clandestine operation behind the enemy lines by a young woman that she then shared a blanket with.
I see.
And so that all happened, and then like an hour and a half later, they rescue someone from a bunch of gnolls who looks exactly like that woman. And
Good
she's like,
storytelling.
Clarice! And the woman throws up the shield spell in front of herself before she can be embraced and goes, I don't know you. Who are you? And that was the note we ended the episode on. So I'm so pumped to pick that storyline up and run. And I even think I'm going to break out my Arabelle accent for it. Just to give this character a little more like, when I'm speaking in her voice.
Right.
Because I'm in my accent.
Yeah.
This is also the game where I was browbeat by Polymorph, who is in chat right now.
Yeah, I see.
Into making Handsome Dan, the leader of the New Blades mercenary blackguard group, sound like he's from Chicago.
Okay, I would be grateful for like the Convergence kind of thing, because you can bring in accents from time and space and everything else. I on Sunday mornings have been having a hard time because there's like 7 characters right now, and each story starts new characters. So I'm trying to come up with new accents and new voices for all the characters and things. And then because of my dyslexia, reading the text is really hard because the font they chose messes with my dyslexia really badly. So I sometimes I end up reading like Ron Burgundy, and I'll read something and then realize what I read and then just start laughing because I had the words were coming out of my mouth, but bleep you, San Francisco. And then I'm like, oh, what did I just say?
Yeah, you get on that groove and you keep going. For me too, with it being holiday break, I've been streaming a lot in the morning. Continue to kind of grow my coffee hour slot that I'm enjoying a lot. And looking forward to, upon retirement, that being like my stream slot.
Right.
So I can do like daily streaming and go off and work my other jobs, depending on what happens. I'm also dealing with the insurance companies because apparently nobody offers collision coverage while you're driving, gig driving like Grubhub or DoorDash or Uber. Nobody does collision insurance while you do that. Weird. All other insurance is covered. Weird. But little pro tip there, folks. Double check your policies. I can't get collision coverage.
Man, that would lead me to. So when I used to deliver pizzas as like help. I used to help a friend of mine who owned a pizza place. On Sunday nights, I would drive for him. I bought like a $500 car just to run pizzas.
Yep.
That way, if I did get in some kind of thing, I had my PLPD. I walked away. It's on fire. I put sunglasses on and just let it burn behind me.
I'm not that far from that being a plan, because the minivan's starting to. I mean, it's got 11 years on it, so there's a part of me that's like that might be the long-term plan. Is when the minivan it is the Grubhub car. Until the day it dies, and when it dies, it's like, okay, now I need a new job because I don't have a car to do this with anymore. So I'm not taking a new car because we don't have coverage. Although fingers crossed, if I can squeak 8 more years out of it, the wife's car will now be an old car. So that's what's going on in my universe. Hopefully we see everybody again for Wednesday night, 7 p.m. And that's where we're at. Any parting thoughts for our podcast listeners before we head home?
Never be afraid to do a holiday game. Try to introduce new people to a holiday game, and remember the three big ones: Santa Claus, who's a bad guy, Jack Frost, or you sometimes use a white dragon. Those are all great holiday bad guys.
Yes, I fully concur. The white dragon is an amazing one. If you want to continue this conversation related to insurance and driving, feel free to join us on our Discord. The links are usually somewhere in the podcast descriptions. Thank you for joining us. We will see you all next time. If you're here with us live on Twitch, thanks for hanging out. It's great to have the chat. It's great to have people talking to us. Good talking again. Oh, yeah. Well, this is the way it works. You can always go back and listen to the first half. I have to tell you honestly, it was no less chaotic than the second half. This was another one of our, let's just pour out a beer and talk.
We haven't talked in weeks, and so just the get back in the groove section of the game was of the podcast was.
Which you are always welcome to join us for some kind of if you have ideas, you can always email them in, and we're happy to accept your suggestions on topics. I am starting up a raid. We're going to go drop it on Dork Tales, an amazing group of gamers. They are playing a game of All Plague Doctors, doing a game using the Powered by the Apocalypse system.
Nice.
Which I know Graybeard is a huge fan of that system. Tell them we said hi when you arrive. I will not be able to do much chatting when I get, because I have to go get dinner ready myself. I got a few texts from Mrs. Noir that she's like, hello, is anybody home? Because she can tell that the studio is active. But thanks for coming by, and thanks for being part of our stream. And we'll see y'all in 2 weeks when we sit down again and talk about something hopefully slightly more D&D related. See y'all then. Till then, stay safe.